Emily Parker had always believed that quiet evenings were supposed to be comforting. But lately, silence felt heavier than it used to. Her husband Noah had been working in a city 2 hours away ever since he accepted a new position. He came home only on weekends, arriving tired and leaving early. Their conversations had become short, practical, almost scripted. Emily missed the softness they once shared, the easy laughter, the midnight talks, the feeling that they were a team. Now, the empty house reminded her how alone she was. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. Rain tapped against the windows, and Emily was folding laundry in the living room when she heard a knock at the door. She assumed it was a package, but when she opened it, she saw Noah's younger brother, Ethan, standing there with a quiet smile. He lived only a few blocks away and often helped Noah with house repairs. Emily had always liked him. He was dependable, friendly, and warm-hearted, traits that made him easy to be around. "Hey, Emily," Ethan said, holding a small toolbox. "I came to drop this off. Noah said it was in my truck by mistake." She stepped aside to let him in. "Thanks. You can put it on the table." Ethan set the tools down, but instead of leaving, he lingered near the doorway. His shoulders seemed tense, and he kept glancing away like he was searching for words he couldn't quite form. "You okay?" Emily asked, sensing something was different about him. He took a slow breath. "Actually, no, I'm not." Emily's heart tightened. Ethan wasn't the type to share problems easily. He usually hid his emotions behind jokes or easy smiles. Seeing him unsettled made her instantly concerned. "Do you want some tea?" she offered gently. He shook his head. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you. I don't know how you'll take it, and I've tried to keep it to myself for a long time." His tone made her nervous. She set the laundry aside and sat down, hoping to steady her pulse. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." He stepped closer but kept his distance respectful. He rubbed his hands together, clearly fighting his nerves. "I've been carrying this for years," he said quietly. "Ever since the first day I met you." Emily felt her breath catch. She didn't move. She didn't blink. Something in his voice told her this wasn't going to be something small. Then Ethan spoke the words that froze her in place. "I wish I had met you before Noah did." The room fell silent. Emily felt like the rain outside had stopped mid-air. She stared at him, unsure if she had heard correctly. "What?" she whispered. He swallowed hard, but his eyes stayed honest. "I'm not saying this to cause trouble, and I'm not expecting anything from you. I just needed you to know. You're kind, you're patient, you listen, and you deserve to hear the truth at least once." Emily felt a wave of emotion rush through her, shock first, then confusion, then something she didn't want to name. She had always sensed Ethan admired her, but admiration was one thing. This was something deeper, something raw and completely unexpected. "Ethan," she said softly, trying to breathe, "you shouldn't say things like that. It complicates everything." "I know," he replied quickly, nodding. "I know it does. And I'm sorry. I tried to keep it inside because I respect you. I respect Noah. But every time I see you alone in this house, waiting for him week after week, it breaks me a little, and I hate myself for feeling this way." His voice cracked on the last word, and Emily's heart twisted. She wasn't angry, just overwhelmed. Ethan wasn't trying to cross a line. His confession came from pain, not selfishness. That made it even harder. "I don't want you to hate me for saying this," he said, taking a small step back. "I just wanted to be honest once so I can stop carrying it like a secret I never asked for." Emily closed her eyes, trying to gather her thoughts. She knew Ethan truly cared about her well-being. He wasn't trying to break anything in her life. He was just admitting a feeling he had fought for years. When she opened her eyes, Ethan was watching her with quiet worry. "I don't hate you," she finally said. "I could never hate you. But this is a lot, Ethan." "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry for putting this on you." He turned slightly like he was preparing to leave. But Emily stopped him with a soft voice. "I need to understand something," she said. "Why now? Why tell me this tonight?" He hesitated, looking down at his hands. Because I saw you outside yesterday evening. You were sitting alone on the porch, hugging your sweater like you were cold, even though it wasn't cold. And I realized you weren't waiting for warmth. You were waiting for company. Emily felt her eyes sting, not because of Ethan's words, but because they were true. She had been missing her husband more than she admitted even to herself. I know I can't fill Noah's place, Ethan continued. And I'm not trying to. But I also know you deserve someone who sees you. And I see you, Emily. Always have. His honesty shook her more than the confession. Because deep inside, Emily knew she had been feeling invisible for months. Not unloved, just forgotten in the rush of work, distance, and life. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Ethan, I need time to process this. He nodded. Of course. I'm not asking for anything. And I'll never bring it up again unless you do. I just wanted you to know the truth. Emily watched as he picked up his jacket. Sadness and relief mixed on his face. Before leaving, he paused at the doorway. Please don't think I'm trying to break your family. I would never do that. I just didn't want to live with regret anymore. Then he stepped into the rain and walked away. When the door closed, Emily leaned against it, her heartbeat racing, her mind spinning. She didn't know what surprised her more, the confession itself, or the quiet ache inside her chest she never expected to feel. She whispered into the empty room, "Why did you have to say that?" But the truth was, a part of her understood exactly why he had, and that realization scared her more than anything. The morning after Ethan's confession, Emily woke before sunrise. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word he had said. She wished she could forget it, erase it, pretend it never happened. But the truth clung to her like a shadow. She got up, made coffee, and tried to focus on routine, anything to keep her mind steady. But every small moment reminded her of the night before. The house felt different now, as if it carried a secret she never asked for. She kept telling herself that Ethan's words didn't change anything. She was married. She loved Noah. But another part of her, the quiet part, she ignored for months. Felt seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. That scared her more than the confession itself. By noon, she forced herself into chores. She cleaned the living room, watered the plants, and answered emails. She moved quickly, almost aggressively, hoping the rush would wipe away the confusion. But no amount of sweeping or scrubbing could silence the uneasy storm inside her around evening. She heard another knock on the door. Her heart tightened immediately. She knew who it was before she even opened it. Ethan stood outside, hands tucked in his jacket, looking guilty and exhausted. "Emily," he said softly, "can we talk?" Just for a minute. She wanted to say no. She wanted to avoid all of this. But Ethan looked like someone carrying a weight too heavy for one person. She stepped aside, letting him in. He didn't sit. He stood near the doorway, as if staying close to the exit would make the moment easier. "I came to apologize," he said quickly. "I shouldn't have said those things last night. I made you uncomfortable. I crossed a line, and I'm sorry." Emily shook her head. "You didn't hurt me, Ethan. You were honest. That's not something to apologize for." "Maybe," he said quietly, "but honesty shouldn't make your life harder. And I think I did." She studied him for a moment. His eyes looked tired, but not embarrassed, more like he had finally released something he had kept locked away. There was a fragile sincerity in him she couldn't ignore. "I just want things to be normal again," she said softly. He nodded. "So, do I believe me?" He looked down at the floor, then up at her. "But I also want you to know something. What I said had nothing to do with wanting to take Noah's place. I never wanted that. I just needed to stop pretending I didn't care about you." Emily felt a sting in her chest. Not romantic, not forbidden, just deeply human. She understood how painful it must have been for him to carry feelings he didn't want. "I'm choosing to forget it," she said gently. "And you should too. We both want to protect this family." "I know," he whispered, "and I swear I won't say anything like that again. You're important to me, but your marriage comes first." Her eyes softened. "Thank you for saying that." He nodded, grateful but still wounded. I just want you happy, Emily, even if it's never with me. The sincerity in his voice hit her unexpectedly hard, and she had to look away for a moment. She didn't want him to see the emotion rising in her eyes. After he left, Emily went to the porch and sat down with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The sky was turning orange, fading into soft purple. She watched passing cars, neighbors walking dogs, children riding bikes. Everything looked normal, but nothing inside her felt normal. She kept thinking about her marriage. Not about Ethan, though his words still echoed, but about the slow distance that had formed between her and Noah. She remembered how close they used to be, how they used to talk about everything. Now she barely knew what he was feeling half the time. She wondered if he even noticed how lonely she had become later that night. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. She wanted to call Noah, but she didn't want to sound needy or emotional. So instead, she sent him a simple message. Hope your day went well. He replied an hour later. Busy, talk later. Those 2 words hit her harder than she expected. There was no miss you, no warmth. No sign he sensed anything was wrong. Emily turned off her phone and rested her head on her arms. She didn't cry, but she felt that quiet ache, the kind that sits deep inside and slowly grows. The next day, she tried to distract herself. She went grocery shopping, made soup, worked on a small art project she had been ignoring, and even took a walk in the neighborhood. She hoped keeping busy would help the emotional fog fade. But wherever she went, the memory of Ethan's voice followed. Not the confession, but the sentence that truly stayed with her. You deserve someone who listens. It didn't make her question her marriage. It made her question her place inside it. 2 days passed before she saw Ethan again. She was sitting in the backyard, trimming her small herb garden, when he appeared at the fence holding a package. Noah asked me to drop this off, he said, keeping his tone calm and respectful. She thanked him, and he nodded politely as if trying to keep everything normal. But he paused for a moment and studied her expression. You okay? He asked quietly. It was a simple question, but it felt like someone finally noticed her. Emily had been holding everything inside for days, and hearing someone ask so sincerely made her throat tighten. I'm fine, she said quickly. Though her voice sounded thin. Ethan didn't challenge her. He simply gave a small nod. But before he left, he said something that hit her deeper than anything else. You don't have to pretend around me. Those words made her breath catch. She didn't respond because she didn't trust her emotions. She just looked down at the plants and let him walk away. That evening, Emily sat alone on the porch again. A cool wind brushed against her face, making her pull her sweater closer. She stared at the empty driveway, imagining Noah's car pulling in, imagining him smiling at her the way he used to. She wanted him to notice her loneliness. She wanted him to ask if she was okay. She wanted him to care, but he didn't call. He didn't text. And the silence felt louder than ever. Emily closed her eyes, letting the wind move through her hair. She wasn't falling for Ethan. She wasn't confused about her marriage. The truth was simpler and sadder. She missed feeling valued. She missed feeling chosen. She missed the version of Noah who had once fought for her as she wrapped her arms round herself. She realized something painful. If something didn't change soon, the silence in her home would grow stronger than the marriage holding it together. And she wasn't sure how much longer her heart could ignore that. Emily woke that morning with a heavy heart. Noah was home for the weekend, but it felt like he had brought only his tiredness with him. He moved through the house like a shadow, checking emails, making calls, and responding to her in short, distracted sentences. She tried to speak to him, carefully testing the waters. Noah, do you think we've grown apart? She asked gently over breakfast. He didn't look up from his laptop. I'm tired. Can we talk tomorrow? Tomorrow came, then the next day, and still no real conversation. Emily tried again, but every attempt ended with a sigh or a distracted glance at his phone. She realized, painfully, that she wasn't just missing him, she was missing the connection they had lost. The easy laughter, the small gestures, the reassurance in his touch. All of it had faded into routine and distance. She began journaling late at night, pouring her fears and frustrations onto the pages. She wrote about Noah's absence, her loneliness, and the moments she had almost felt understood by Ethan. She didn't want to admit the part about Ethan out loud, but putting it on paper allowed her to see her emotions clearly. They weren't romantic. They were reminders of what she longed for in her marriage: attention, care, and recognition. During the day, she tried distracting herself with small tasks. She cleaned the kitchen meticulously, organized the pantry, and even tackled the cluttered garage. While doing so, she stumbled across a scrapbook she and Noah had made years ago, filled with photographs, notes, and mementos from the first years of their marriage. Looking at the smiling faces, the trips they had planned, and the promises written in careful handwriting, Emily felt a wave of sorrow. Those moments seemed like a different life, and she realized how far they had drifted. That evening, while Noah was on a work call in the other room, Emily sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The sky was painted with the orange glow of sunset, but she didn't notice it. Her mind kept replaying Ethan's quiet confession, the way he had seen her in a way Noah hadn't for months. She felt conflicted, guilty even, for thinking about it. Ethan's feelings hadn't tempted her. They had merely reflected the gap in her own life, the emptiness she couldn't ignore. As she sat there, Ethan appeared at the fence, holding a small package from Noah. He greeted her softly, careful not to startle her. Emily's chest tightened, not from attraction, but from the comfort of being noticed again. He asked if she was okay, his eyes searching hers. She quickly said she was fine, but she couldn't hide the faint sadness. Ethan didn't press, just nodded and left quietly, leaving her with a lingering ache she couldn't name. That night, Emily tried to speak to Noah again. She approached him in the living room while he was scrolling through his emails. "Noah, we need to talk about us," she said. He nodded, but she could tell he was exhausted and distracted. "I feel like we're drifting," she added. He looked up briefly, then returned to the screen. "We'll talk later," he said. And she knew this conversation would be postponed yet again. Feeling ignored, Emily retreated to her journal. She wrote about her heartbreak, not as a dramatic confession, but as an honest account of her reality. She realized that the emotional distance in her marriage hurt more than arguments or disagreements ever had. She remembered the nights when Noah would stay up just to talk, the way he used to make her feel important and heard. That part of their life felt gone, and she feared it might never return. Emily spent the weekend quietly observing Noah, noting how preoccupied he was, how little he noticed her presence, how their interactions lacked the warmth they once shared. She felt invisible, a silent observer in the life they had built together. Every small gesture he overlooked: her cooking, the clean laundry, the way she smiled at him, reminded her of the love that had slowly become unnoticed. By Sunday evening, Emily knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. The emotional distance wasn't just frustrating, it was painful. She didn't blame Noah entirely. Work pressures, responsibilities, stress had changed him, but she couldn't continue to feel invisible. Something needed to happen, some conversation, some gesture, some acknowledgement. Otherwise, the emptiness would grow too large to overcome. That night, Emily stepped out onto the porch, letting the cool night air wrap around her. She thought about Ethan again. She wasn't in love with him, but she couldn't deny the emotional clarity his confession had given her. It highlighted what she had been missing in her marriage: attention, care, emotional intimacy. Ethan had shown her that she deserved to be seen, and it wasn't wrong to long for that even from Noah. As the stars appeared, she realized she needed courage. She had to confront the growing distance between her and Noah, not with anger, but with honesty. She had to speak openly about how lonely she felt, how much she missed the closeness they once shared, and how desperately she wanted it back. If she didn't, she feared the emotional gap would become permanent, a silent wedge between them. Emily knew she couldn't rely on Ethan. Their connection was fleeting, a reflection of what she needed, not a substitute. She wanted to protect her marriage, but she also wanted her feelings acknowledged. She had spent weeks ignoring the truth, but it had become impossible to hide. The next day, she prepared herself for a conversation she had been postponing. She watched Noah as he moved through the house, noticing how tired he looked, how distracted he was, how little he seemed to notice her. She felt a pang of sadness, but also determination. She wouldn't let their love fade silently. She would speak even if it was uncomfortable, even if it was difficult. In the quiet of the afternoon, Emily approached Noah again, choosing her words carefully. "Noah, we can't keep going like this. I feel like we've grown apart, and I don't want to lose what we have." Noah paused, finally giving her his full attention. His eyes softened, though fatigue lingered. Emily realized that he had no idea how distant they had become, how much she had been hurting silently. She felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, it could still understand and respond. That night, Emily sat on the porch, reflecting on the past few days. She realized that emotional distance can be more painful than any argument, more damaging than any conflict. She also realized that honesty sans honesty, her own honesty, was the key to bridging that gap. She didn't need Ethan to act on his feelings. She only needed to recognize her own emotions and face them with courage. For the first time in weeks, she felt clarity. She understood that love wasn't just about being together physically. It was about noticing each other, listening, and showing care. She knew that if she wanted her marriage to survive, she had to be brave, speak her heart, and demand the attention and love she deserved, not in anger, but in truth. As the night deepened, Emily took a deep breath and made a silent promise. She would confront the distance, not with blame, but with honesty. She would fight for the connection that had once defined her marriage, and she would make Noah see her again. No more silence. No more being invisible. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a quiet sense of hope. Emily knew the days ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that acknowledging the gap was the first step toward closing it. And with that thought, she went inside, ready to face the hardest conversation of her married life, one that could either heal their love or change it forever. Sunday morning arrived quietly, almost like it had nothing to do with the tension that had built up over weeks. Emily woke early, the house still and empty, Noah asleep in their bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands, thinking about the conversations she had been avoiding and the emotions she had been suppressing. She knew she couldn't wait any longer. The distance between her and Noah had grown too large to ignore. Her heart ached, not with longing for someone else, but with the need to be seen, heard, and understood by the man she had married. She decided that today she would speak the truth. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with the quiet courage that comes from loving someone deeply enough to fight for the relationship. She got dressed, poured herself a cup of coffee, and waited for Noah to wake. When he finally stirred, rubbing his eyes and yawning, she felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. "Noah," she began softly, "we need to talk. Really talk." He sat up slowly, sensing this seriousness in her tone. "Okay," he said, brushing his hair back. "I'm listening." Emily took a deep breath and began. She told him everything she had been feeling: the loneliness, the quiet ache of being unnoticed, the longing for connection. She didn't mention Ethan's confession. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about jealousy or temptation. This was about honesty in her marriage. She explained how the weeks of distance, both physical and emotional, had made her question their closeness. She admitted she sometimes felt invisible and forgotten, and that she needed more than just weekend visits and short conversations to feel loved. Noah listened in silence, his eyes focused on hers. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt like he was fully present. She noticed the softening of his expression, the slight tension in his shoulders easing as he absorbed her words. I didn't realize it had gotten this bad," he said finally, his voice low. "I thought that working longer hours and trying to provide for us would make life better. But I didn't see that I was disappearing from it. I didn't mean to make you feel invisible, Em." Her chest tightened with relief. For months, she had carried the burden of unspoken feelings, fearing that Noah didn't care. Hearing him acknowledge the problem made her feel lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. "I'm not blaming you, Noah," she said quickly. I need us to be closer again. I need to feel like we see each other, not just live under the same roof." He reached for her hand, a small, tentative gesture that made her heart flutter. "I don't want to lose us," he whispered. "I don't want to miss the life we promised each other. I've been selfish with my time, Em. I want to make this right." Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, they were relief, hope, and love all mixed together. She squeezed his hand. "I want that too. I want us to find our way back." For hours that morning, they talked. Not about trivial matters, not about schedules or responsibilities, but about their dreams, fears, and feelings. They spoke about the things they had stopped noticing in each other, the little smiles, quiet gestures, shared jokes, and simple acts of care. They talked about how work and life had pulled them apart and how they could rebuild the intimacy they had lost. It wasn't a perfect conversation. There were pauses, moments of hesitation, and even a few tears. But for the first time in weeks, Emily felt a sense of connection, of being truly seen by her husband. She realized that love wasn't about grand gestures. Alone, it was about noticing each other every day, making time and listening without distraction. Later that day, Emily made a choice regarding Ethan. She reached out to him, meeting him at a small park nearby. He arrived holding the package Noah had sent the previous week and looked at her with cautious curiosity. Emily smiled softly, wanting to set boundaries while expressing gratitude. "I'm choosing my marriage," she said gently. "I need to focus on us, on rebuilding what Noah and I have. But I want you to know I appreciate your honesty and the care you've shown me." Ethan's expression was a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I respect that," he said quietly. "I just want you happy, Emily, truly." "And I am happy," she replied, "because I know where my heart belongs." They parted with a gentle nod, leaving behind no bitterness, no regret, only mutual respect. Emily realized that Ethan's confession had been difficult, but it had also served a purpose. It reminded her of what she truly wanted and highlighted the parts of her marriage that needed attention. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Noah slowly rebuilt their connection. They set aside time for evening walks, shared dinners without phones, and late-night talks that didn't feel rushed. They laughed together again, not just out of habit, but with genuine enjoyment. Emily noticed Noah making small gestures, leaving notes, asking how her day went, listening to her stories without interruption. Each gesture reinforced that they were reconnecting, not just physically, but emotionally. Emily often thought back to that rainy Tuesday night when Ethan had confessed his feelings. At the time, it had felt like a storm threatening to upend her life. But in hindsight, she saw it differently. Ethan's honesty had been a mirror, showing her what she was missing, not what she wanted. It had helped her realize that the person she needed to fight for was the one who had been by her side all along. Months later, sitting on the porch with Noah after a long day, Emily felt contentment she hadn't known in a long time. The emotional distance that had once separated them had diminished, replaced by attention, care, and a renewed sense of partnership. She looked at Noah, his eyes soft and warm, and felt that familiar spark that had drawn her to him years ago. It wasn't instant magic, it was quiet, steady, and real. She understood that relationships require effort, honesty, and courage. That sometimes the hardest choices, like confronting emotional distance, having difficult conversations, and setting boundaries, can lead to the deepest satisfaction. Emily had faced her fears, spoken her truth, and chosen to rebuild the love she had vowed to nurture. The night air was calm, stars twinkling faintly above. Emily leaned back in her chair, taking Noah's hand in hers. They didn't need grand declarations. They didn't need dramatic gestures. They just needed to see each other, listen, and care. That was enough. For the first time in months, Emily felt whole again. She had chosen love, honesty, and commitment. And in doing so, she had found the warmth and connection she had been longing for, not in someone else, not in fleeting confessions, but in the life she had built with Noah. Sometimes, she realized, the most unexpected moments don't destroy love. They remind us of what is worth fighting for. And Emily knew deep in her heart that this was only the beginning of a stronger, closer, and more understanding journey together.